So basically, like for most people, a room of 50 to 10 people cheering you on is a big thing. But then at the same time, a video receiving 50 to 10 views, that is viewed as unsuccessful. In each situation, we're imagining if all the views and all the, let's say, likes are unique, right? These are people, but in different contexts, they have different value. And I think that's why this is interesting to explore, basically. Huh? Because it's trying to find me. Yeah. But it's very distracting. It's fine, right? Hi, guys. How are you? So today, no? You know what? Fuck it. I'm so sorry. No, it's too cold. It's too cold. I'm going to do it inside because tomorrow might rain because this is ridiculous. Oh, it's too late. I've started too late and I'm freezing. Hi guys, welcome to another video on May in Bloom. I was supposed to be shooting this outside, beautiful scenery, but it was cold. My ancestor would not want that for me. So I was like, move your little ass inside. I want to have this conversation in a comfortable space, so it might not be the most gorgeous, but maybe the clips in the beginning gave you a bit of a feeling of how it could have looked like. So guys, I've spent more than 10 years on YouTube combined, and 9 years on this channel specifically. I started in July 2016, and it's only this week, I think it's this week, that I've managed to hit 5,000 subscribers. And 5,000 is the most I've ever had on any of my platforms. So you might be wondering, okay, that's not a big number, especially after 9 years. But I wanted to talk about why I'm still incredibly grateful for my digital path crossing 5,000 of you and you connecting enough to click, yes, show me more of this lady. You see, I was intended for this channel to be an extension of Abantume, my other channel, where I talk about decolonial existence, personal decolonial existence from a holistic and womanistic perspective. But I always imagined that this channel specifically would be where I would show the practice of that, or the ways I was practicing living from those philosophies and values. I really wanted to share my journey with those of you who are also on similar journeys in the diaspora, wherever you might be, or on the continent. And I also wanted to show up for the girl I used to be, and perhaps the questions she had that she couldn't find answers to through my own exploration. And then I also wanted to document the woman I was becoming in pursuit of living a more aligned life. To document a way of living that questions the norm, specifically the norm that has influenced me the most as an African woman, which is the Western Eurocentric worldview and values, and how it influenced how we saw ourselves and our place in this shared world that we all live in. And in general, I really find living from a decolonial perspective to be very interesting because it inspires your curiosity constantly. And after reaching this milestone of 5,000 of you, I really got to questioning how we view numbers and our relationship with numbers and our way of existing with numbers and even becoming numbers ourselves. The truth is, for a long time, I've been musing around the fact that I feel that numbers control us. We live in a world that is defined by numbers from the moment we wake up, basically. We're controlled by time, we're controlled by when we wake up, we're controlled by what time we have to be at a certain place, we're controlled by the wages we make, we're controlled by numbers in the form of the revenues, the KPIs that measure our productivity. We're controlled by our age, we're controlled by our height, we're controlled by the numbers of things we accumulate, the numbers of intimate relationships we have. We're controlled in so many ways by number. It's the way we relate to our world in so many ways, especially the world that is heavily influenced by the Western Eurocentric worldview. And social media is no exception. So there is a usual saying that usually goes that time is money, but really time is numbers. And we only say time is money because we measure the amount of numbers that we either have the chance to accumulate or lose as time passes by. So even as the passing of our life, we can narrow it down in that saying to its value in numbers, basically. The European Western perspective love to measure how numbers influence our life. A space where scientific rationalism, capitalism have shaped the way we understand time, space, and also human value. I wanted to share some of those ideologies and philosophies with you guys in case you find that interesting as well. So like, for example, Max Weber, a foundational thinker in sociology, and he discusses how Western society has become increasingly rationalized, meaning that life is almost simply organized around calculations, efficiency, predictability. The more things you can measure, the more things you can quantify, the easier then it is to see the efficiency of those things and use those metrics as forms of control, of value, of progress, of productivity. I think this is also particularly interesting from a historical point when you see that a space like the Enlightenment also was rise to a lot of pro-rationalism, but where a lot of like key European thinkers like Isaac Newton, Descartes, or Immanuel Kant believed that we could use reason, observation, and measurements to understand the world. And obviously what you can understand better is also easier to control and shape in the way that you want it to be shaped. And it was specifically this time period that laid the foundation to one of the biggest peaks of progress in Western European history. But not only that, the clear progressive obsession with numbers and how they could improve the progression of our own lives, productivity, and civilization. And I think also it's quite interesting that it wouldn't just end there, but also the interesting part of it was how this era brought about this belief that numerical data would be our way to objective truth. Another interesting thinker that I think adds well to how we see ourselves in relationship to numbers is the German sociologist under the name of George Simmel. So his findings are interesting in the sense that he was exploring how money as a numerical value impacts everyday relationship and connection. He specifically noted how in modern time, by embracing the idea that time is money, that humans were reduced to their economic value. And all of these transactions also changed the way that we saw human interactions, and that they too then also became very transactional. And it's quite interesting because this is also something we entertain in modern day. Like we say stuff like, if it's not about money, I don't want to know about it. Like I'm about the bag. Like there's so many ways we talk where we've embraced this idea that I don't want a relationship with you unless it's adding to my money. Because that's actually what I value the most. That's the most important thing for me. And that's the most important thing in modern society, in very individualistic, capitalistic modern society. But all of this again goes back to like our relationship to numbers, right? Simmel was able to highlight the abstract power of numbers, and particularly through the form of money, and how this simplified and standardized human life and human interactions, all again making life more transactional and less personal. The person becomes a number, their value is also measured in numbers, and their relationship to others is also quantifiable and simplified into a transaction that includes numbers. And I think this is particularly interesting when we talk about the digital era, social media, because no other place have we accelerated the obsession with numbers, their relationship to us as consumers or interactors with other people, because basically social medias thrive on the quantification of human interaction through likes, comments, subscribers, what have you. And all of this reduces the complexity of human interactions and emotions into digestible numbers. And so when we find ourselves in a time where human interaction is reduced into numerical feedback, simplified and commodified, we also become obsessed with the idea that our social worth is based on the quantity of likes, comments, and followers. And this also commodifies our human interaction digitally, which where we are currently in life is becoming more and more a part of our daily life. Most people are online in one way or the other, and most people who maybe don't have profiles online or social media are interacting with other people who are engaging in this game of existing digitally. And your work being valued, important, or highlighted based on its quantifiable metrics. Then we get to the part of monetization and attention economy, which the majority of social media platforms rely heavily on, which basically again means the more likes, the more subscribers, the more views a certain content piece receives, the better it is for the creator and for the platform economically. Like I said, I've been here for quite some time. And in the early days of YouTube, even getting 100 views on your video was very significant. This was before monetization, whereas now a lot of content creators are quite dependent on going viral. And viral means millions of views. That is the standard, that is the goal, that is the motivation for a lot of content creators who have found that this is another way that you can make money. And to be honest, I don't really fault them for that. It feels at least as a dignified way to make a living because you're doing hopefully things you like, talking about things you like. But then the focus on making sure that this is profitable kind of also influences the kind of content you create, the frequency and the focus that you might put in it, because numbers matter. And even for content creators that, let's say, have gone viral or have amassed a huge following, the idea is always okay, so how do you keep the numbers up? How do you get more followers? If you are a content creator, there is a part of YouTube called the studio, but where you can also see your analytics that are supposed to tell you how well you're performing, how well your videos are performing compared to the last video you made, how much engagement it's getting, where it's being found. A lot of this are based in numerical data, and that is supposed to show your progress or decline, and also supposed to motivate you in seeing what you can do to make sure those numbers continue to go up and stay in the green. Also, what I think is interesting about this is once we get to the point where that is the main focus, especially as a content creator, there is then a sacrifice to maybe creating content that you generally like, or creating content at a slower, more sustainable, even holistic pace. But instead it's turned into a laborious machine that you just have to keep feeding. This also has impacted how I see content creation and how I wanted to exist on my digital platforms, and seeking ways and exploring ways that felt more authentic, where I did not get sucked into the obsessions of numbers, which I really, really understand how easy it is to get to. And I think also it's interesting how then social media impacts how we see each other, again, the commodification of relationships and interactions, especially on the receiving side as a content creator. how then you might view each like or each comment, each view just as a number. Whereas obviously behind every comment, behind every like, every view is an actual living, breathing human being. Not just a number. Like a human being cannot be reduced to a number. But because so much of our interaction and the importance of social media and just digital spaces and how those are really managed by numbers, it's easy for us to get into that thinking where a human being is nothing but a like, a comment, or a follow, an extra subscriber. And I feel like that makes me question that in the pursuit or the main focus of growing our channels and growing our platforms, how easily it is for us to, like, without even maybe choosing to, see so much the numbers, and especially wanting those big numbers, that we lose sight completely of the human life behind it. And bear with me, because it doesn't actually have to be that deep, right? I also know that a lot of us also come on social media to have fun, to relax, to unwind, and it is all of those things. And it doesn't mean that every time you have an interaction with someone online, someone comments or likes, that you need to feel this profound connection to them. But it's just the normalization that people so easily can become numbers. And I feel, weirdly enough, it doesn't benefit us either, as neither the content creator or consumer, I consider myself both, when we see things in those terms, because it reduces something so precious as human interaction, interest, engagement, support to such a small thing that we've learned to value much more than thinking that there's an actual full human behind the comment. We will more focused on getting maybe 1,000 comments or 1,000 views than the fact that actually, let's say 20 living beings interacted with your content or liked what you shared or looked at what you shared, right? I think it's interesting because when we minimize the being behind it, we're also doing it to ourselves. It goes both ways, basically. At least that's what I believe. When we get to the point where, for example, like me, and I see, hey, I've gained 5,000 subscribers, right? If I see that just as a number, and it's easy for me to then imagine, okay, how do I get to 10,000 subscribers and beyond? Like this gamification of this interaction experience online. And don't get me wrong, like if that's truly motivating for you, and that's what you feel inspired by, the fact that, okay, what's the next number? What's the next number? It is a fun way maybe to see your growth, but I also think that there's a slippery side to it. When we reduce our entire online interactions into these milestones of reaching numbers and focusing less and less on creating actual connections with people. And it's impossible to create that amount of connection. That's why I think it's easier than to just focus on the numbers, because it's hard for you to imagine creating a connection where you can see the humanity of 1,000 of your subscribers, 2,000 of your subscribers, 10,000, 100,000, a million of your subscribers. It's hard for the human brain to fathom. Like most of us, we're not even created to live in communities bigger than a certain number, like maybe 50. But in the digital age where you can have millions and millions and millions of people following you, engaging with your content, it's hard for you to see really those people. Instead, it feels like it becomes easier to see them as a commodity that you can leverage in one way or the other, because numbers speak, you know? And especially in a world where now, even as an artist, if anything you want to do and put out, like, it's not uncommon for companies to ask, how many social media followers do you have? Because that gives them an idea of how popular you are or how successful you are, how useful you might be to whatever they're trying to hire you or give you the opportunity to. Right? I kind of believe that everybody who starts out on social media has a desire to connect with an audience, has a desire to create something of value, has a desire to create perhaps a certain community or share a certain perspective. But I think when we lose sight of that and we simply hone in on the metric part of it, that's maybe when we lose sight of our initial reason and intention of creating. I'm not naive. I think there are people who are like, I want to start a YouTube channel and have millions of thousands of subscribers, and that's the goal, literally, and I'll do anything for that. And like I say, like, I don't believe it has to be that deep. I think as content creators, if we get sucked into this ways of seeing numbers where we lose sight of seeing them representative of people and building community, then I also think that in many ways, even the way we create, it can create a sense of stress, it can create a sense of pressure in how you grow and how you exist on this platform. But it also impacts the way we see not only ourselves, but each other, because then we also judge each other based on those same metrics. We get to be fully invested in a game that is not there really to liberate or create more connection or to improve our lives per se in many meaningful ways. Of course, like gaining financial well-being and success is good for people who want to create and live off that creation. But I'm saying when we get too deep into the source and we lose all connection to, hey, what are you doing this? Why are you here to begin with? What's your purpose? You know, what was your intention? And are you honoring that, or have you got sucked into the source? And I also believe, like, finally, it's a game of balance. You kind of find a way where you can maybe do a bit of both. You want your channel to be healthy and thrive. And yes, one of the ways that we measure thriving is it growing at whatever pace maybe that may be, but also, are people enjoying what you're creating? Are you really creating community? I want to live a life that is very intentional, and I want to live a life that feels aligned with my values and my philosophies about the way I want to go about things. And I want things to grow, but in respect to those things, I don't want to feel like I'm sacrificing one or the other. And I feel like because I see my life with that, or I try to live my life according to that, I also see and view most experiences and challenges as opportunities for me to practice living in accordance to my values. That's the way that I enjoy being on this planet. And I see also how it helps in situations where, for example, let's say I did spend a good amount of time on a video and I posted it and I was like, oh, this is really good. I really love this. I hope my little community will enjoy that as well. And let's say it gets views that I feel like, oh, I really hope that more people would like it, because I have those tools to lean back to, like, okay, what are your intentions? How are you viewing the situation? Where is the opportunity for you actually to be more aligned with your values in how you want to exist on a digital, even on a digital platform? And for me, as soon as I notice that, okay, I'm disappointed because let's say I'm seeing numbers and not people. And as soon as I shift that around, even if my video was to get like 50 views and I focus on it not as numbers, as people, my way of responding to it also changes, because 50 people is a lot of people. Like right now, if this room was filled with 50 people who were supporting my work, that would be a lot of people. But because we see all these grand numbers, we feel like 50 people is nothing, and that's us reducing the human value because it's presented to us in numbers. But when I do that, it reminds me why I'm doing this, and it reminds me, remember, there are people actually behind that. Even if I make a videos and I get 1, 2, 3 comments, those are people who took time in their life to be like, hey May, I love your video, or maybe I thought about this when I saw your video, or what have you. I think that you guys are really sweet and you leave such encouraging and kind comments, and you make me recognize that yes, there's people behind all those numbers, there are people behind the comments, and there's people behind the likes, and these people in their own little ways are telling you to keep going. You know, that's beautiful. I appreciate that, and I want to see that. I don't want to lose sight of that because of numbers, basically. I hope at least I never get to that point, because I think I don't know what kind of person then I'll be if I actually got to that point where I didn't really care that there was people behind it. And I kind of think that this is where a decolonial approach for me is very beneficial, because a lot of the things that we feel there is no other way to view this, there's no other way to feel about this, we forget that this norm is created from a specific worldview and a specific group of people. Those ideas and values have been exported and sometimes mostly pushed down on the rest of the world. But in many indigenous cultures, even African, there's a different way of seeing time and there's a different way of seeing value. And I think that is displayed well when we talk about African time, for example. And it's a simple thing, but it does say a lot. And the fact that time is a bit more flexible in the African worldview, it's more about the quality of interaction, of being together, of community that is going to matter more than what time something starts, you know? At an event, it's okay for things as annoying as it can be, especially if you are over-programmed within the Eurocentric existence, within the Eurocentric experience. But time is almost a suggestion. There's other things that are valued more and things that are not quantifiable, but things of quality at the same time. And I think about this also when we think in terms of not only like how we time manage, but also even the ways that we see age. Most of us of African descent to have parents or grandparents that don't know their birth dates, maybe don't even keep count of them. They don't see that passing of time, the passing of age as important enough to make it a cultural importance or create traditions around it. In the way that we do in Western European cultures, I think that also says something like how we see numbers, how we see time, and how we see our relation to time as well, right? And our value in association with time as well. In that more indigenous and alternative ways of seeing value, of seeing time, there is a huger emphasis on community rather than the individual, experiences rather than collecting data points or making things at a certain time. What kind of experience are people having? So in many ways, quality over quantity, right? And this is just to ground us in the fact that there is other ways to exist than the dominant way that we think is the only norm because it's the one that is the most dominant and the one that's most pushed down on us. And this exploration, like of course for me, personal decolonization and a holistic approach to it means that I can apply it to so many things. And they let me reevaluate my ways of thinking and ways of interacting and being in situations because they let me understand there is a different way. It's not the only way just because it's the only one you've been exposed to. And you can try on different perspectives, different worldviews, and see which one fits the most, which one makes more sense to you, which one brings you more value, right? And you can then align yourself to that if that makes more sense to you. A few years ago, I shared a video on here about slow content. And slow content comes from slow living, slow food kind of branch of thinking. I go more in depth about it in that video, so do check it out. Even in modern Western cultures, there is a pursuit to advocate for a different way of existing, a different pace, and one that, of course, also can influence our digital experiences because that is becoming more and more a part of our lives. And engaging with slow content or even creating slow content, there's a value of building community rather than maybe chasing numbers. There is a value of creating from purpose rather than just churning out content and feeding the machine. There is a value of knowing that your things matter even if they don't get certain numbers, basically just because you love to be creative, you love to share your ideas, and if it's only one person, if it's two or three, it doesn't matter. Because your intention is that I want to create things of value to me and hopefully other people see that. But the numbers of people engaging or seeing that is not why you're motivating to do what you want to do. But also for me as a content creator, embracing slow creation has also meant that I don't feel the pressure to exist based on algorithms and to follow algorithms. here and there, like I play and try certain things because I also wanted to balance it with my fear of being perceived, which is something that I was like, maybe I'm hiding behind all of this, but really I'm afraid of being perceived. But later I found out that, yes, in the beginning, I think I was doing a lot of things to almost intentionally keep my channel small. But I've gotten to a place where I feel open to being more perceived and to growing my channel, but not at the expense of my values, as I've shared previously. And in that pursuit, I can still ground myself in the values that come from a decolonial approach of existing and seeing people and seeing time, and engaging with numbers, but also a slower pace of existing. But slower, I think, also means mindful, to question. Don't just fall in line and not question things and follow the big wave wherever it's taking us as people, but to question, does this make sense to me? Does this align with the things I value? Do I really need to be here like the way I'm told I should be here, right? Maybe, yes, a channel grows faster if you post once a week, but is that what I want to drive why I share and why I create? And that's different for everybody. But I think it's good to question that and know that you're making choices that make sense to you, that you have given a mindful thought of. And not just because that's what you're supposed to do and you're chasing numbers because that's what we're supposed to do on these platforms. So yes, I think if you had asked me 9 years ago where I imagined my channel being, I don't think I would have said 5,000. But at the same time, because of the intention I've had, I've learned to enjoy the journey more than the numbers. And I genuinely try my best to make sure that each video reflects that intention. To be honest, I often think about this channel like a secret garden on a quiet street in a very busy city. And I see it as something that people randomly stumble on, and the people who stay are people who think this is exactly what I've been looking for. I would like to come and visit this garden again. I think sometimes we don't appreciate the beauty and simplicity of smallness. In a world that glorifies if you can go big and bigger. We even have phrases such as go big or go home. And that's also something we measure, usually using numbers. How big are you compared to someone else? So how successful are you compared to someone else? And the aim is to grow. And I always like to joke that it's to grow almost like a cancer, with no purpose or awareness of context, just the desire to expand and dominate. I appreciate the growth of this channel, and I want it to keep growing and thriving. I really want it to be rooted in the things that have gotten me this far. Maybe for others it's not far enough. But for me it has been and continues to be a learning field that I get to practice on. I recently restarted my Instagram for my art, and the numbers have been soulfully humbling. And of course I had the human response first, like, what's going on? Like, am I shadow banned? I've just started this account. What's going on? Why am I getting no views? And so I was like, oh, interesting that you're feeling all of these things. And I was like, you know what would be interesting? To explore continuing to share your art, knowing very few, if anybody, is going to find it or watch it, and see how that feels like and how long you keep going. And for most people, maybe at a certain point, you might be like, what's the point of creating if nobody's watching? But I think there's something beautiful and rebellious about existing despite how the algorithm treats you or rewards you, and saying, I'm still gonna be here. And not only that, I'm still gonna do great work, and I'm still gonna enjoy the process. And I'm not gonna care if my content ends in the hands of 10 people or 50 or 100 or 0. I'm still gonna show up, because that doesn't get to define why I'm here and why I create. I think there's something beautiful in that. So I'm exploring that on that platform. And that's what I mean by using these experiences to continue my inner work. And when I have a certain strong feeling and I want things to be a certain way, it's an opportunity for me to sit down and be like, interesting, why do you feel like that? Why is that your assumption? Why is that your way of feeling about yourself, you know? Is it always fun? No, but it brings purpose into challenges. And I like that. I appreciate that. And so as I sit here with 5,000 of you who've joined this channel and me on this journey, I'm deeply grateful. I am grateful that you found your way here. And I'm grateful that behind every number is a person who found my little digital garden and subscribe so that they could remember to come back and visit it. And human to human, though I can't imagine what 5,000 people in a room would look like, I still genuinely appreciate every single one of you. And even those of you who've been here from the beginning, yeah, like you are my OGs forever and ever and ever. Thank you so much for bearing witness to parts of my life, for your quiet presence, and for your encouragement through comments, likes, and views. You've been a part and continue to be a part of something that is very precious to me. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. And so as always, I thank you so much for watching. I hope this sparks some thoughts within you, and I'd love to hear what you think about that and how numbers influence your life. And do you ever think about that there's other ways to exist on this planet outside of numbers? And that goes from not just time and money and age and all the things that we feel trapped by these numbers, these goddamn numbers. I wonder like how your experience with that has been, or if maybe it's the first time you even thought about that. But anyway, again, I thank you so much for being with me and bearing with me and bearing witness to aspects of my experience on this beautiful planet we call Earth. I hope that you are well, and I hope that you're blooming wherever you might be, and I hope that you're finding value in more ways than could ever be counted. And I will obviously see you in my next video. Do take care. Bye guys.
Still breathing, you're the lucky ones, 'cause most of us are heaving through